This nugget is focused on how to implement a PMO, a project management office. Before we get focused on implementing the PMO, first we need to understand what is a PMO. A PMO is an organizational unit that's focused on project management. It's an organizational unit focused on project management. That's about as fine a definition as we can get of what is a PMO. PMOs sometimes report right into the senior management at the top of the house. PMOs sometimes report into the IT organization. There are occasions where PMOs report into business units. So as fine a definition as we're going to be able to give you is it's an organizational unit that focuses on project management. PMOs can come in three main flavors. The first is a corporate project or program management area. The PMO in this instance is an organizational unit that's focused on consolidating, coordinating all of the project management, all of the program management information to ensure that the company has a complete picture of all projects, how they're doing, how the projects integrate, and how the projects are working together. So from a corporate viewpoint, this PMO is focused on the project and program management to ensure they have a common story, a common picture, often referred to as the dashboard of total project management in the organization. In other organizations, the PMO is a project management resource pool. All project managers, all team leaders, all are part of the PMO, all report into this project management resource pool. When the organization needs a project manager, they go to the PMO and the project manager is assigned from the PMO. When the project needs a team leader, when the project needs project coordinator, all of these resources are resourced from, staffed from the project management resource pool. And sometimes the PMO actually owns projects. Projects are initiated and handed off to the PMO, and then the PMO becomes the central control point for project delivery. Each of these three flavors of PMO are very different, ranging from the common dashboard to a complete resource pool where all project management resources reside, to the actual ownership responsibility for project delivery. What is a PMO? A PMO is an organizational unit focused on project management. Different organizations will implement PMOs in very different ways depending on their needs, depending on their requirements. As different organizations implement PMOs in different ways, maybe a better way to look at this would be to look at what functions a PMO may provide in an organization. A typical responsibility of a PMO is to collect, organize, and distribute project information throughout the organization. And the difference being that the PMO is collecting, organizing, and distributing the project information throughout the organization, where an individual project manager is responsible for project communications within the project, within the stakeholder community of the project. The PMO is looking after the collection, the organization, and the distribution at the organizational level. To ensure that everyone in the organization is aware of all project details, all project status. And when I say all, I'm referring to all of the projects in play in the company, not the minute, micro-focused details for the project, but that we have, again, the dashboard. The consolidated picture of project performance throughout the organization. Another common function for a PMO is to gather, review, and develop project templates. Predefined, fill-in-the-blank templates. These could be for project plans, so they're MPP files. They could be templates for actual project deliverables, so we may have Word templates, so that if you need to deliver a requirement specification document, a system test plan, a X document, you would go to the PMO, and the PMO would say, yes, our organization has done this before. Here's a template that has been reviewed, sanitized, improved, certified to be best practice for our company, and these templates are developed by the PMO, which consolidate the best practices across many companies, across many projects, and for that matter, across many companies within the specific responsibilities that the template is being delivered for. On the area of expertise in the project management area, a PMO is often responsible for training. A PMO will often develop specific training programs for project managers, for team leaders, and for participants. And in one organization I've worked with, there's actually been project management training for the business. And to be honest with you, I found delivering project management training to the business to be extremely effective. By having the PMO roll out very consolidated, very concise, very focused training on what project management is to the business, it ensured the business's expectations were being properly managed. It ensured the business knew what was expected of them, and it ensured that the business knew what the project manager expectations would be so that they could manage the project manager appropriately. So by having the project management expertise focused in the PMO, we have an excellent consolidated source for project management training. As mentioned previously, a common requirement, a common focus for PMOs is the actual resource pool. All project management staff, whether they be actual project managers, team leaders, project coordinators, are responsible to report into the PMO. And then when a business unit wants to sponsor a project, they would come to the PMO and say, I need a project manager, I need a team leader, and the PMO would staff out, assign the project manager to the business unit from this qualified, trained resource pool. And finally, a common function for a PMO, as defined earlier, is the project control point. Not a common implementation of PMO, but certainly still happens, is where the PMOs actually own the project. There's a big difference between the resource pool, where the project managers are owned by the PMO, but then assigned to the business unit for project delivery responsibilities, and the actual project management control point, where the PMO retains responsibility for project delivery. Almost becomes on a contract basis, where the business unit contracts internally within their own company, but the business unit contracts to the PMO, and the PMO takes on the responsibility for delivering the project. That's the control point, where the resource pool is the project manager simply report into the PMO during periods of on assignment, where they develop the templates, where they develop the training, and then when assignments come, they move out of the PMO, become responsible into the business unit, and deliver the project for the business unit. So again, looking at the detailed functions for a PMO, we see a very wide and varied level of detail, level of process control that different organizations are going to use to implement PMOs. One of the more common roles of a PMO that I've seen is this of the corporate project/program management area. The PMO is responsible for providing the total picture, the big picture of project delivery across the entire organization. In order to deliver this big picture, obviously the PMO needs to be a repository where all individual project status reports are received. So each project being delivered throughout the company, and in large companies there may be dozens of projects being actively delivered at any one point in time. The PMO receives all project status reports and then will consolidate and produce the organizational reports. Again, these are not micro-focused organizational reports. These are very high level, what's often referred to as dashboard reports, where there's a series of charts, gauges, bar charts where they're coded red, green, or yellow, depending on project status, where obviously a project in red status is in trouble. Green is great, and yellow is warning. Pie charts where we see where the project is, how much budget is being consumed, where the project is in the overall corporate picture, as well as run charts and various other dashboard type information to allow senior management, or any management for that matter, in the organization to see what the total picture is, or as I say, the big picture. That's through the production of the organizational reports. Hidden around all of my typing now is another common function is to coordinate resource pools. It may be the PMO actually owns the project management resources as discussed earlier, or it may be the PMO simply is aware of overall project delivery resources. And as business units need project managers, or as business units need team leaders, or as business units need analysts, or whatever the case is going to be, the PMO, because they're receiving all project status reports, because they're producing the organizational reports, are certainly in a position that they know who is available, even if they don't report directly into them, and can provide some level of coordination to ensure that resources, project-based resources, are being most effectively deployed throughout the organization. So as I said, a very common aspect to the PMO is this corporate wide-level view of project program delivery to ensure that the big picture is known throughout the organization. Another very common function of the PMO is to be the project management resource pool for the organization. Effectively, all project management staff report into the PMO. That ensures we have focused staff whose interests are, whose skills are on project management. This ensures that we have qualified staff. It ensures that we have people who are focused on, who believe in project management. Or one of the focuses of this Nugget series is that we have a PMO staffed with qualified people who are PMPs, project management professionals. Because all of the project management staff are part of the PMO, we have an excellent facility for peer support. You need to talk to a fellow project manager who has done something similar before. You can identify them and find them through the PMO. You're bringing on new project managers, entry-level project managers. You have an excellent facility for mentoring, for supporting, for growing, training those new project managers to ensure that they are qualified, that they are bona fide, that they deliver projects in your organizational way. When project managers are not directly assigned to projects, when they have spare time, downtime between projects, they can be focused on developing of project management best practices. So they can develop templates. They can develop samples. They can develop guidelines. So this is how projects are to be delivered in our organization. Project managers focused on project management, PMPs, when they have downtime between projects, because they're focused on project management, because they report into the PMO, their responsibilities during slack time is going to be development of your corporate project management best practices, development of templates, to fill in the blanks, take off the shelf and say, here is a sample project plan, here is a sample requirements document, here is a sample test plan. No longer do projects have to start from blank pieces of paper. Projects now have full, robust, proven best practices within which projects can be delivered. Because all project management responsibility is focused on the PMO, it can become the project management tool repository. Because tools are going to be owned by the PMO, tools will be deployed effectively to projects, we can often justify buying more expensive, more complete, more elaborate tools to put into the project manager's toolbox, because these tools will be used perpetually throughout the organization. If one project isn't using it, they can be assigned to another project. No longer will the tools be owned by individual project managers who have to justify their existence. The tools can be owned by the PMO, shared across the organization to make the purchase price prorated across all projects, to ensure that all projects are using a common set of tools, that again, all projects are being delivered to a common set of standards. It doesn't matter whether the project is being delivered for Business Unit 1, Business Unit 2, or Business Unit 3. Doesn't matter if the project is being delivered by Project Manager 1, Project Manager 2, or Project Manager 3. The PMO, as the owner of the project management resource pool, ensures that we have project management best practices, a project management tool repository, and a set of project management standards that define how projects are delivered, successfully in our organization. The last form in which PMOs may be implemented in an organization is as a central control point. The PMO in this instance has extreme power. In the previous discussions that we've had, we talked about corporate project management. We've talked about project management resource pool and project management coordination. There, the PMOs were involved in project management, corporate project management, and coordination of information for the project, but they didn't have central ownership. They didn't have control. In this implementation of the PMO, there is ownership. There is power. As we say right here, the PMO owns the project. The PMO becomes responsible. As I said in the introduction, it's as if the PMO has entered into a formal contract with the business unit to deliver the project on time, on budget, to specification. The PMO is responsible to the business unit to deliver the project. The PMO will take whatever actions are appropriate to ensure the project delivers successfully, and if the project doesn't deliver successfully, the business unit can hold the PMO responsible. Very different flavor of implementation to the PMO. Here we have ownership, here we have control, here we have responsibility, where in the previous discussions of the PMO, we talked about coordination points, resource pools, development of best practices. Here we have an absolute ownership, responsibility issue, requirement for the PMO. Because of this level of responsibility, we're not coordinating the resource pools, we manage the resource pools, not just the project management resource pools, but all project staff, the business analysts, the engineers, the technical staff, all must report into the PMO, at least for the purpose of project delivery. If the PMO is going to be responsible, the PMO must manage, must own, must have control over the resource pools. And unlike the previous discussion where the PMO developed project standards, here the PMO enforces project standards. This implementation of the PMO is focused on control, on responsibility, on ownership. This is probably the least common implementation of a PMO that I've seen in an organization. It, again, is effectively as if the PMO becomes an external firm and contracts out to the business unit for delivering of the projects. Sometimes will result in an adversarial, us versus them relationship, where the other implementations of the PMO, where we have the coordination, the resource pool, the development of the best practices, leads to a more sharing, more common focus within the organization. That's not to say this aspect to central control point is bad. This implementation of a PMO speaks very much of the project-based organization that we discussed in the organizational structures nugget. So again, it's going to depend on what level of control, what level of enforcement, what level of responsibility the organization wants the PMO to have versus what level of control, what level of ownership, what level of responsibility the business unit should have for the project. This nugget was focused on how to implement a PMO, a project management office, in your organization. Really, the implementation of a PMO is going to depend on what the organization wants the PMO to accomplish. In this nugget, we discussed that there are three main functions, three main ways a PMO can service an organization. It can focus on, provide a corporate project program management view. It can consolidate all project-based information and provide consolidated organizational project program views. Again, we refer to the concept of a dashboard, where the PMO consolidates all of the project-based information and provides the focused view, probably on a monthly basis, of how all projects are doing to allow for a degree of coordination, a degree of consistency throughout the organizations as projects are being delivered across business units. Another implementation of a PMO is to focus on project management resources, project management best practices. All project management staff within the organization would report into the PMO and then be assigned out from the PMO to lead projects within the business unit. The PMO would gather, consolidate best practices, and would be a central repository, a clearinghouse for best practices to ensure that lessons learned, to ensure that experience from previous projects are carried forward and put into play on future projects. And the final implementation of a PMO is as a central control point where the PMO actually owns project delivery responsibilities and effectively contracts out to the business unit to deliver the projects for the business unit. So how to implement a PMO? The answer of how to implement a PMO is going to be based on what your organization wants out of the PMO. Very different implementation strategy if it's a central control ownership versus it's a repository for project management resources and best practices versus if it is a consolidation resource that'll consolidate and produce project management best practices. Is there a right implementation of PMO? Absolutely not. Is there a wrong implementation of PMO? Absolutely not. It's going to depend on organizational requirements, organizational expectations, and organizational resources. The key to the PMO is the betterment of PM and PM best practices throughout the organization. The actual implementation will be organizational specific and can be tailored to each individual organization's requirements, where again, the implementation can be one of these or some hybrid of these based on specific organizational requirements. This concludes our nugget on how to implement a project management office. I hope this video has been informative for you, and thank you.